Well, according to this, I am live. Hello, people, or at least people who will be joining me shortly. Um, Doing a little better today. I'm going on at 5:17 instead of 5:30 or 5:45. My work always gets in the way of doing this, but I really, really strive to be here as consistently as I'm capable in the moment, which some of you may think, well, that's kind of pathetic if that's the most you're capable of. But I love being here and I love when you join me. And I'm sure some people are going to come in soon. Well, here we have Ward. Hi. Yes, great. I'm here. Yeah, as soon as I get a few more people on here, I'll explain what happened last week. I don't want to use the word emergency, but it was a little bit of a minor emergency where I did have to cancel the show at the last minute. Ward, I'll just wait till a few more people on here and I'll tell the story. It's not that big of a deal, but it was enough where I could not. There was just no possible way I was going to get back home in time to do the show, or if I did, it was going to have to be very, very late. And I just felt better to skip it. And frankly, after the tension of that day, I needed a break. I needed a break. It's just been an intense period. I'm doing a lot of work professionally, but I'm also doing work for myself. I've mentioned this ongoing project I have for my home it just seems so simple in theory. Doesn't it always seem simple in theory? That this closet over here, if I just started taking all the stuff out and I just sort through some things and throw out some stuff and donate and put things back, it'll be so much nicer in here. And of course, I've told this to many of you already. My entire apartment is just utter chaos right now, or at least I'm trying to get it under control. And I'm hoping to be there soon. But I had no idea it was physically possible to cram as much into a closet as I apparently did. It's that old idea of sweeping under the rug, and I know people are guilty of this, even people who swear, no, I never do a thing like that. Well, we all do things in private, and I've known plenty of people like myself. I don't know what to do with this. Throw it in the closet. Put it under the rug. Stick it under the couch or something like that. Well, that's okay for a few things, but it catches up with you. And in my case, I had about 5 years worth of stuff that had more than caught up with me to where it was. It's like the old joke about Fibber McGee's closet, from the radio show. Well, I was the real life embodiment of that, and I just want to get this done. It's been kind of stressful. And Andy, hi, thank you for joining. No, you're not too late joining the party. For just 5 years. Yeah, I'd say about that. I used to be a lot better about it, but I think for those of us who work a lot, and I work from home, it's very easy to, this procrastination of, I will take care of that later. I'll take care of that tomorrow. I'll take care of that next week, next month. Well, now it's 5 years later and that has to be taken care of. It will be much better in here. And I'm also looking forward to it because I just want to reclaim my home. And it would be nice to do it before the holidays begin. It's nice to have people over. As I said to one of my friends, it'll be nice to be able to actually take your coat and instead of slinging it over a chair, I can actually say, here, let me hang this in my closet to be able to do that again. What was this word? I went through about 40 years, a few years back, when I could no longer breathe due to dust. Well, I've been in those circumstances. Thank goodness not in this apartment, but I've mentioned previously at least 5 times in my life I've had to go through this. I know when my thing was when my late aunt passed away, and it fell to my sister, my father, and myself to clear out her entire home. And as I said, lots of us claim that we don't do this sort of thing, in public, versus our private selves. Well, unfortunately, when you are cleaning out somebody's home after they've passed away, you see their truth. No worry, there was nothing bad or anything, but it was just my aunt, who was a college professor, by the way, was a pack rat. But then, as my sister and I like to laugh about it, or half laugh about it, apparently that's a gene that runs throughout my family. But my aunt must have had these chest of drawers filled with nothing but purses. And then we found a multitude of hats and a multitude of shoes. And she loved to collect cookbooks. And it was just so much, the old keep, donate, throw out, and when you've got a limited amount of time to do that, it's really hard. So that was my first introduction to that. And then after my mother passed away, about 8 months later, so my father made the decision to sell the house and to move out closer to where my sister lived. And so it again fell to my sister and myself and my now elderly father to clean out, I think about 43 years worth of stuff. You mentioned Ward about 40 years. This was about 43 years worth of stuff. And this was a big house. We're talking an attic, a basement, and a full house of belongings. And oh dear God. I think my sister and I were on the point of having multiple nervous breakdowns because, again, we were under a time constraint. It had to be done. And by some miracle, we did it. And then another time happened. Let me see. This was a very dear friend of mine who suffered a debilitating stroke. And he unfortunately had to go to a nursing home. And I was this one I did by myself. I had to clean his apartment out from top to bottom, and I had maybe 2.5 weeks to do it. And he wasn't a blood relative, but that pack rat gene somehow transferred to him because he had a multitude of memorabilia and people call them memorabilia, actually just stacks of magazines and papers and enough stuff that it should have been started on many years before, not to the point where I had to do it by myself and I had 2.5 weeks. And then there was the time my last apartment, I had to clear that out. Now that was also a cluster, what. And so I've been down this road several times. So this is minor compared to it, but it certainly triggers PTSD on those issues. I better check my comments here. Let's see. Pardon me here. I have to scroll down just a bit. Oh, yes, Andy, I got to say thank you to all the great people who served us for our wonderful country. Without them, we won't have a place to call home. So thanks to all the people and movie stars that have served for us. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Tomorrow, of course, is Veterans Day. Oh, yeah. Well, my father was a World War II vet. He had some great stories to tell. Hey, Renee. Hi, thank you for joining. Let's see, so far I've got Renee and Ward and Andy and Joyce. Hello, Joyce. I was hoping you were going to join. Joyce, I had the best time talking to you last week. Folks, Joyce Petrus is a gifted astrologer and numerologist, and it was a revealing day, wasn't it, Joyce? But you gave me, I knew it was going to be a whole lot of puzzle pieces, but nonetheless, I've been taking all those pieces you gave to me, and I've been slowly putting them together and making sense out of all of this. And so thank you dearly for your time and your patience with me. You're a good friend. Well, I guess enough people have joined here. I have all 4, but I was just going to say the reason I had to cancel at the last minute last week, it wasn't a dire emergency, but I think a lot of this has to do with all of the stress I've been under, all the lifting and moving, just anxiety. I had a very high blood pressure reading. I always check my blood pressure. It was really high. And, so I do get treatment and everything, but it was enough to concern me that I thought I better get to the doctor. I'm very lucky with my healthcare here. they're really terrific. You can just walk in many times without an appointment, and they'll just check things like this. And I'm glad I did it. When I got to the doctor's, have you ever had that thing where you have something that's broken, not working, and you take it back to the store and you take it to the sales clerk and it works perfectly in the store? I've had that happen to me and they don't believe me. Well, anyway, it wasn't that I wasn't believed, but, and I guess this is a good thing. I get to the doctor's, I take my blood pressure and they said, it's fine. You're perfectly fine. I said, but 2 hours ago, I practically had blood shooting on my ears. I mean, it was bad. It was a really bad reading. And of course, it was explained to me that this is normal, actually normal for blood pressure to fluctuate like that. The problem is when it stays there. But no, the spikes like that aren't such a bad thing necessarily, but it's also a good thing to check. And so I had to rush to the doctor, and I didn't even have time to put an announcement or anything to say I was going to cancel the show, but I knew there was no way I was going to be able to do it. And I thank you all for understanding and the circumstances. And of course, I'm back here right now. And I have my blood pressure cuff here. I could do a live on the air reading. Or maybe that's not a good idea. A little too much information, a little too personal. Oh yeah, Ward, you were saying that you can't play around with blood pressure. Well, that's why I went to my doctor. I have, I guess, I don't like telling my personal stuff on here, but I guess there's nothing wrong. I'm just saying it's Kaiser Healthcare, and they've treated me really, really, really well. I always get doctors, nurses who just really listen to me. They're compassionate, and that means a lot. I'm Dr. Whimsy Anderson's assistant, and I talk to a lot of her patients, and Whimsy is fabulous with listening to her patients. She encourages people to ask questions, to talk, because as she once said to me, that's the way a doctor should work. That's the proper way to do a diagnosis. It's not just looking at numbers or test results. It's also taking your education, but blending that with your intuition. And she's an extremely intuitive person. So that's a good combination. And she's also well educated on top of that. But she said another part of it is asking questions and really listening to the person. And sometimes it's you and the patient together creating the diagnosis. So, as she put it to me, that a diagnosis is an art. I love working with Whimsy. She has bettered my life in so many ways and taught me so much. But anyway, that was my experience last Monday. Everything's okay for now. I'm here. You're here. Oh, Andy, you ordered pizza. I'm envious. Your Pizza Hut just arrived. Let's see. Oh my God, all that dinging you hear, that's Anastasia Pavlov right now. And she knows I'm on right now. She knows not to do this. It's the funniest thing. I tell all my friends, please don't call me during the show. Don't send me messages. Otherwise people are going to hear ding, ding, ding. But I guess she just forgot. Anyway, I don't know if Anastasia is doing a show tonight because she's going to be back in the desert with her friend working for a few days. And as you know, I never like to give people's personal info, but I know she's been very open about that, and she wouldn't mind me saying that. Let's see. I'm trying to see if anybody else has joined on here. Oh, Sydney, hello. Thank you for joining. Andy, you're asking, you want a piece of taco pizza? Yes, I do. Send it to me right now. And a piece through the screen. I wish that were possible. Maybe technology will catch up to this in a few years. Andy, wait, Ward, Andy, you think Sir Chuck might have taco pizza during Taco Tuesday? We call the show I do Dr. Whimsy Anderson's shows twice a week now, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Now we never have really named Thursday. Hot Topics Thursday, I don't know, but Tuesday, of course, is Taco Tuesdays. And I've just said, one of these days Whimsy, we need to have plates of tacos in front of us and and margaritas while we do the show. You know, she's talked about that coming back down to LA for a visit. You know, she does her end of the show from Portland, and I do mine here in Los Angeles, and we have the split screen. One time, I think it was close to 3 years ago, she was down here, and that's Anastasia again. If you're that ding, what was that? Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. But Whimsy came down here about 3 years ago, and we actually did our show together, not split screen, actually sitting side by side. And we had a really stressful day. We almost didn't make it back to her hotel room by 5 p.m. to do the show. It's a wild, wild story, and we've told it on her show. But we had wine coolers, and you know, I know better than to drink alcohol when doing a live show. It's not like I got tipsy or drunk, but it definitely loosened us both up. We were laughing a lot more than we normally do. Let's just put it that way. And of course, we had the running joke the night before when Whimsy was here. We went for Korean barbecue and then went across the street to the movie theater and saw Barbie, the Barbie movie, Barbie and barbecue. And I hope Whimsy comes back down here again. We got to do it again. But yeah, I tell you what made that day so bizarre is, you know, Whimsy, she's like me. You know, the wheels are always spinning in our heads. We're always having ideas of things to do, projects. And so she came here with this notion we weren't going to waste any of our time. We were going to shoot a lot of promos and remote pieces that we could use on the show. And she wanted to go to Hollywood Forever Cemetery. That's where people like Judy Garland, Rudolph Valentino, Mickey Rooney, Burt Reynolds. Oh, Anastasia, I love you, but please, she keeps ding, 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 sending messages. No, I'm not annoyed or anything. Don't tell her that. I'm fine with it. I'm fine. As long as you guys are fine with it. But we went to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery and shot a few pieces there. And Whimsy lost her purse that had some expensive camera equipment in it. And it also had her passport, and she was going to Europe in a couple of weeks. So it was very, very, very upsetting. And we were retracing all of our steps and could find nothing. And it was one of those days. It was hotter than hell. It was like 98 degrees or something. The air conditioner in my car was on the fritz. So it was sweaty and hot and miserable, and we were hysterical. But we got back to the room, and there's this amazing phenomenon many of us have. I have it. She has it. Anastasia has it, where the little light goes on and we're on camera. We can be in the worst moods possible. And yes, she's still dinging. Anastasia, you know I'm on the air right now. Where once the camera goes on, it's like, hello. You know, we're okay when we're on camera. We somehow pull it together. And that's what Whimsy and I were doing. And before we knew it, we were getting tipsy on camera on wine coolers. And I think it was because part of it was just so hot and it was chugging the thing down. And this is just water in here. And I'm trying not to get product endorsement because that's supposed to be a big no-no on YouTube. You're not supposed, like I'm told, you shouldn't have even like a t-shirt that has a brand name on it. That cup you just saw. But yet, nobody's done anything against me yet. Let's see. Looking at other names here. You'll have to please pardon me if I miss a question, a comment, I miss a name. It's because the comments are all on the side screen, and I'm trying to do my best to look into the camera here. And I don't know if YouTube has something like this or there's a device, because I have always thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was something like a teleprompter if you're familiar with teleprompters, that's where newscasters use them, where you look right into the camera lens, but the script, it's the viewers don't see it, but the script is there for the anchor to read while they're looking into the camera, and it gives the illusion of making a direct personal contact, eye contact. And I would love to have something like that, and I would be less likely to miss your comments and names here. But let me see here. Danny Ward, 2012 Cheetah. That's a great name. People saying hello to each other. Oh yeah, Ward. Oh yeah, I remember Miss Whimsy's lost bag. Yes, that was not a good day. So much so that Whimsy and I still talk about it. We don't want to repeat that. And I'm trying to remember if there was a Mercury retrograde going on at the time. Joyce, you certainly know this. We just started our latest Mercury retrograde, and I believe here on the West Coast, it started at 11:04 a.m. yesterday. And I was like, shh, because Joyce, you may have to correct me on this, but I always try to get down to the wire. I try to get as many things done before the retrograde starts as I possibly can, sometimes like even minutes beforehand, because I figure I'm technically within the guidelines. Now, I may be deluding myself in that, but I was hoping the retrograde was not going to start until that night. No, 11:04 a.m. Sunday. So I thought, well, I guess what do I need to do here? Well, I need to trim my cat's claws, Sasha. And I thought maybe it's better I do that before the retrograde starts. No mishaps. Mishaps to her and mishaps to me, because any of you who have cats and try to trim their claws, the cats don't like it too much. And Sasha will fight me. I have had times where I have like claw marks on my arms. I've had bites, been bloodied up. And then as soon as I'm done with the last claw and I put her down, she's fine, walks off. No sweat, no problem. But she just does not like having her claws trimmed. And they were getting so long. I couldn't let it go any further. Danny Hooley, it's been a hell of a week with your dad being in the hospital. I'm terribly sorry to hear that. But Danny, thank heavens he's home now. I'm very glad for you. That's always distressing. I am so sorry about that. Ward, Sir Danny, don't worry. We all missed last week. Yeah, Danny, I had to cancel the show at the last minute last week. I've told the story a few times here, but people keep joining. Just not a dire emergency, but it was enough of an emergency, or an emergency want to be, that I felt that I needed to go to the doctor, just get it checked. Everything is fine. But because it was so hurried, I didn't even have the time to make an announcement. I should have at least posted an announcement or something. There was going to be no show, but I figured you'd all figure it out. That wasn't on the air. But I get maybe it's good for all of us to have a little bit of a break. I've been working so hard lately, and also, I love doing my 2 shows a week with Whimsy. I am honored to do those shows. Those shows actually are what are really putting me on the map right now, giving me a lot more attention, because we have sometimes 10,000 viewers or more a week, many times what I have here. And that show, I'm always mindful. Maybe I'm considered the co-star, but I always think of it as Whimsy's show, because Whimsy's been so good to me. And I strive to always be humble about what I do, not let things ever go to my head. So I go on there with the idea to serve Whimsy, just to be the best co-host I can possibly be. How can I support her? But that show is a very different structure from this, because we talk about hot topics, news events, and we also do intuitive readings live on the air, something that Whimsy's been after me to do with this show. But I don't know. I'm just kind of settled in with the format here. I play it by ear. Maybe if the audiences were a little bigger, maybe I would dip my toes more in the water. But I figure I do enough of that on the 2 shows with Whimsy. And also, I will admit, I work hard for that show, because to talk about the news events, it means taking a few hours. I mean, keeping up the news throughout the week, of course, but the day of the show, I have to really delve into whatever the current topics are and plan for what people may be asking about. And so if anything, I have to over prepare a little bit. And maybe it's my own paranoia of not being the deer in the headlights if I'm asked a question, or, gee, Chuck, what's your opinion about this subject? I don't know. No, I don't want to happen. That's my worst case scenario. That's like my private nightmare. So my comfort zone, my comfort blanket is to be over prepared, if anything. The Lucille Ball was like that. She was known to over rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. She once, that episode of I Love Lucy where she was on the phone with Ricky and she was trying to make it sound like, it was when she and Ethel were abandoned in the restaurant to wash all the dishes. And they wanted Ricky and Fred to think that burglars were in there and they were firing a gun. So Lucy pops a paper bag. Lucy spent 3 hours with paper bags, just practicing for 3 hours until she found the perfect bag and the perfect pop. That's how she was. How some would say over preparation, others would say look at the results it got. Well, I tend to like to over prepare. It's just my security. I like to be, and I make tons of notes. Lots of times I have my iPad in front of me. I highlight words so I can glance down and look up and not lose my place. But even then, I'm like, I know I have notes on this somewhere. Where are they? See, where this show is different, because we talk about old Hollywood stories, Lucy. This is all stuff up in my head. So this is why this show is a lot easier. This show is a little bit more of a cakewalk. It's the antithesis of what I do on Tuesdays and Thursdays for Whimsy. I do no preparation for this show. I used to in the beginning, but now I trust that I'm fine. I'm fine to just get on here and start talking and channeling. And I trust that all of you wonderful people will have comments and questions. We always get topics. I was friends with the writer Shakti Gawain. I don't know if you know the name. She was famous for her best-selling book, Creative Visualization. Sold about 10 million copies of that. Wrote a lot of other spiritual books. I adored Shakti. I was even visited her at her home in Tiburon, across from San Francisco Bay. And she told, she did lectures all over the world. And she told me she never prepared for a lecture, ever. She was so in trust of her ability to channel on the spot that she knew if all she had to do was get on stage in front of a podium, a microphone, and she also took questions from the audience and so forth. She said she knew she had everything that she needed. And I believe maybe this is my little tribute to my late friend Shakti, that I do my show like this. Let me scroll through some comments here. Let's see. This thing always skips on me. Darn it. Let's see. Let me go back. What was this? Oh, God. I go back. I just went down. It just skipped all over the place. Okay, does anyone catch that gigantic full moon last week? Oh, not only did I catch it, I felt it. I don't know how many of you hold stock in the full moon, how it affects us, but my zodiac sign is Cancer, and I am extremely affected by full moons. I tend to get practically like the werewolf howling, crazy, crazy, crazy. So yes, I very much felt this moon, saw it up in the sky, but it was beautiful to look at, really beautiful. There are all these people who claim the Apollo moon landings were a hoax, but I remember as a kid that was just fascinating to me. And I believed it happened. And I later got to, where I worked in West Hollywood in the health industry, one of my customers was a man who worked for NASA. Back then, he played a hand. He was part. I forget what the specifics are, because there were hundreds of people who worked on those moon missions. But he said to me, "I swear on my soul, we landed on the moon. That was most definitely not a hoax." And he even went so far to say, "It breaks my heart, all the work we did to achieve that, and people are now playing it down, calling it a hoax. No, we really did do that." And, I was just curious, oddly enough, during the full moon, because I think we're all guilty of getting on our phones and looking up stuff on here. And I try to use my phone constructively and try to learn things that have meaning. Sometimes it's just a lot of crap, but I looked it up, and sure enough, high-powered telescopes, I don't know if on Earth or it's maybe like the Hubble or in space, but they can make out on the surface of the moon the remains of the landers. Of course, now people are going to say, "Oh, that's just AI." I don't know, but it was a big deal. And anyway, that had me thinking about that. When I look up at that moon in the sky, and I think, wow, we actually walked on there, and we left debris there too. That's so typical of Earthlings, to leave our trash behind. Now we're doing it to Mars. We're leaving Earth trash on Mars right now with all the rovers and everything. Sydney Willis, the retrograde does not like me, so I get it. Sometimes retrogrades are not necessarily a bad thing. It's, if I could ever figure out how to do a split screen on here, because I'm doing this on YouTube, and I don't think they'd let you do this, where I could have guests, because I'd love to get Joyce back on here. Joyce, because these are things you could be talking about with the retrograde. And I certainly hope one day you'll revive your own wonderful show. But retrogrades can be used constructively. You can, shall we say, work with the retrograde. Like, I have found Mercury retrogrades to be a wonderful time to, like what I'm doing right now, sorting through all of this stuff and reorganizing my home. I find it's a really good time to go through papers, photographs that we say we're going to digitize or put in albums and things. It's an excellent time to do things like that, label them. I guess projects that we have already started but never finished, it's a good time to pick them up again. And it's also a wonderful time for self-reflection, taking stock. I guess one of the biggest keys is to flow with the retrograde rather than to resist the retrograde. And sometimes that's easier said than done, because I've had some retrogrades that have just been horrendous. People think I'm being overly superstitious when I say, well, like, for example, I had to rent a U-Haul truck to take stuff down to my storage unit. I made a specific point of doing that on Friday and not during the retrograde, because you're never supposed to sign contracts, commit to things. I didn't even like the idea of driving on the freeway with a rented vehicle during a retrograde. But you don't do contracts. You don't commit to things. In other words, it's not a good time to get married. My sister got married, Mercury retrograde. Needless to say, that marriage did not work out. But it's just things like that. You got to be careful what you commit to. I think, Joyce, you even advised me that I should lay low, quote unquote, lay low during this retrograde. And I'm trying. Here I am being very public right now. This is like the antithesis of laying low. But I hope all of you are handling your retrograde so far and using it constructively, using it wisely. Andy, did you see when I said it was my mom's birthday and she isn't home yet? No, I didn't, but happy birthday to your mother. And I hope she gets home soon. I hope so very much. I hope that, things are much better for her. Kelly, thing here. The full moon was stunning. It most certainly was. 2012 Cheetah. Joyce, do you do astrology charts readings? Well, I can tell you this. If Joyce doesn't mind, I think Joyce is extraordinary at what she does. Maybe contact her and see how she feels about that. But she's very, very talented at what she does. Let's see. Andy, I took Mom a bag of chocolate raisins for her birthday because I know she loves this stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah, chocolate raisins are good. Yeah. Just sometimes it's the little things that make us happy. Let's see. I'm trying to scroll carefully and not have it go blip on me again. What was this? Danny said, anyhow, on a lighter note, I've been working on the last week of making AI videos, or at least trying to, for fun. My wonderful friends, Dr. Stephanie Hunter Jones, in addition to being a therapist, specifically, she's a sex therapist, a very good one. And she does, and people, when they hear sex therapist, they immediately come to tawdry conclusions. Oh, you're a sex therapist. No, she does this with great integrity, and she heals a lot of people. And as she says herself, her motto is heal your sexuality, heal your life. She does a lot of therapy work. But anyway, to the point, she's a gifted artist. Ever since I've known her, a sculptor, a painter. She's fabulous with surrealism and interpreting dreams. Well, she just started working with AI to make videos. They're gorgeous. And we were talking about it, and she said, again, people misunderstand AI. They think, oh, AI does all the work. No, AI is just a tool to work with. You still got to edit that, score it, put it together. It's still a lot of creativity and a lot of work. Who knows where AI is going in the next few years? Even myself as a professional artist, I've been asked these questions. Well, are you scared about AI? Is it going to take your job away from you? And a few times I don't know. I'm not worried right now, but what is it going to be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? But I like to believe that no computer is ever going to replicate what is in my soul. And I know as an artist, we incorporate the energy of our souls into our work. It's subtle, the vibrational energy that you put into a piece of art for people to pick up on. And I can't imagine AI ever doing that. And also, it was a fellow professional artist who said, something, for AI to work, it's got to be like a client who can describe to you exactly and precisely what they want. And then he said, we're safe, because it's true. It's true. I find it's rare, not to impugn any of the wonderful clients I do artwork for, but I do find it's rare that anyone can tell me what they actually want. And believe me, I respect that. I'm not putting that down, because that's part of my job, to help you to bring that to fruition. But the point being, people trying to do that on with AI probably are going to find themselves being disappointed that AI is not going to live up to what they're thinking they're asking it. So this is, again, where the human touch is important. But anyway, Danny, I wish you really well with your AI videos. Let's see, let me go through some comments here. I'm trying to do this slowly so I don't lose the comments. What was this here? Or making a comment. It's no accident that the moon is the root of lunacy. Yes. Wendy, I posted my cross-stitch progress pictures on my YouTube channel page. Oh, that's great. You do cross-stitch. My mother used to do cross-stitch. She used to make pictures, pillows, and every year, it would take a full year to do this, but she'd cross-stitch an entire quilt. By that I mean the panels. And then I always remember this, at the end of the year or so, 12, 13 months later, all these panel squares had to be taken to a quilt maker, stitched together, and all the backing and the quilting and all that. But I have several of my mother's quilts. When my mother died, several of us in the family divided them up, and she must have done quilts for 20 or 30 years. Yeah, but she loved doing it. I think it was just something that calmed her nerves, gave her something to do in the afternoon. My mother was an inveterate soap opera viewer. And so she'd be there in the after, she worked hard, as most housewives do, mothers and housewives. She worked very hard, kept our home immaculate, cooked beautiful meals, but her rest time was in the afternoon with her soap operas, glasses, and just cross-stitching away. Let me check here. Oh, hi, Chris. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Chris, I was explaining to everybody I had a minor emergency. I had to go to the doctor last week, but everything was just fine. It was just a preemptive thing, but I had to not do the show. Sydney, OCD. I can see that perfectionism in Lucy. Oh, very much so. Very much so. And of course, Joyce, Lucy and I both have our moons at the time of our birth in Capricorn. Lucy is a Leo, I'm a Cancer, but we both have Capricorn moons, and Capricorn moons tend to make you very driven and ambitious. It's the mountain goat climbing up to the top of the mountain, hooves and the rocks and everything. It determines a lot of our personality. And I had an astrologer once say to me that the position of Lucy's moon at the time of her birth was just a notch off, almost identical to the position for myself. And he said, that's why you feel so close to Lucy. But, a lot of that perfectionism in Lucy came from her step grandmother, and I've told this before, so I'll just tell it again briefly, but she made Lucy do chores over and over and over until they were perfect. This was when Lucy was like 7 years old. Like, Lucy would have to wash the same dish sometimes 5 times until it was gleaming and sparkling and perfect. She'd have to sweep the porch over and over until her grandmother determined it was perfect. And I remember when I first read that, I thought, well, that sounds like something out of a Dickens novel, a child abuse, poor orphans, more mush, please, that kind of thing. And no, Lucy loved it because that kind of discipline gave her a sense of security and being loved. And it stayed with her. And of course, when she did I Love Lucy, as I've said on here, she would make everybody, and I mean everybody, do their parts over and over until they were perfect. And I'm talking about people had like one line to say, because Lucy wanted everyone on that show to shine. And she was very smart, very smart. She knew for her to shine, she needed everybody else to shine. It's like, I think of it this way. Lucy was like the diamond and everybody else was like the setting. But that setting needed to be nice and gleaming and shining so that diamond could be shown off. But she was smart enough to do that, but she was also generous enough to do that, to really care for everyone to give their best. So that's, some might say OCD. I don't know. Ward, anyone up for a later day Jack Benny story? Sure. What's the later day Jack Benny story? Maybe you've told it. I'll scroll through the comments here. Shoot, I hope this didn't skip on me again. Okay, it did it to me again. I don't know why I can't just roll down here without the whole thing blipping. Then I have to backtrack. Let's see. Oh boy, this went way off kilter here. I got to scroll back to a comment here that I recognize. Way back. Gosh. Okay, there's the comment about the moon being the root for lunacy and lunatic. Bear with me, folks. I'm trying to find the next comment here. Kelly Jackson, Dean Martin was born not too far from where I am in Steubenville, Ohio. Yeah, I forgot that he was from Ohio. Midwestern man. And I think, despite Dean Martin's image, from all reports I've ever read about him, he was in real life a family man, a conservative family man, very much about his children, his wife, his home. And I bet a lot of those values came from growing up in Ohio. There's this, he always seemed drunk. That was his public persona. And there was a story once of a reporter who was going to interview him after his show in Vegas. And Dean said, why don't you sit in the audience and watch the show first and then come backstage to my dressing room? Well, the reporter sat there and saw Dean come out seemingly drunk off his ass, just slurring his words, everything. And he had a glass of scotch in his hand. And he kept drinking from it. And the reporter thought, oh, my God, what am I going to do when I have to go backstage to interview him? Went back to the dressing room. Dean was stone cold sober. And it turned out that was apple juice in the glass. It was an act. Nothing but an act. Joyce, this one's a doozy, referring to the retrograde. Mostly because of the alignments of the planets. Yikes. In other words, Joyce, I think what you're saying is we need to fasten our seatbelts and get ready for a big ride. It sounds like. Oh, though I tell you, last week was so crazy for me. I almost felt like the retrograde had already started. I like to think I blow off some of the steam of it, but we shall see. We're only into day 2 of it. Yeah, Sydney, you agree that doing something constructive is better during the retrograde. It's definitely the time to pick up those loose ends, those projects that you've been intending to do, projects that you already started, things that need to be tended to. And that can include ourselves. It can include our health. It can include our emotional health. Good time to take stock of things, journal write, whatever works for yourself. I see people saying hello to each other here. Oh, that's a nice name, Crafting and Conjuring. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Whimsy, those of you who watch Taco Tuesdays, she always has me at the beginning of the show say hello to the names, everybody. And, and I've said, well, this makes me feel like Romper Room. Remember Romper Room, the magic mirror she'd hold up. Oh, I see Becky. I see Johnny. I see Joey out there. It almost feels like that. But I have to go through the names, and it means thinking and, that I don't repeat names, that I don't miss names. But my biggest fear is mispronouncing names, because I never want to insult anyone. I feel people have a right to have their name pronounced correctly. That's just out of respect. But sometimes I will scroll and get to a name and I'm like, oh shit, I don't know how to pronounce this. I don't know how to pronounce this. I just have to take a chance on the show. And I've even apologized a few times. I think, I hope I got your name right. What was this for Mrs. Kelly? Do you think Mr. Martin would have gotten to have been as big a star had he stayed Dino Crocetti? No, I get, with a talent like Dean Martin, I'm sure he would have found a way to still rise. The cream always rises to the top of the milk bottle. He would have been a star, but Dean Martin was a much better name for him ultimately. And, I know one of the reasons people change their names, or at least they're prodded to change their names, at least in the old days, like movie stars and stuff, was to have a name that was simpler to pronounce, simpler to remember, and sometimes easier just to put on a marquee. Sometimes a name can be so damn long, it literally won't fit. And I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who said, I'm not changing my name. Yes, it's a difficult name, but people are going to remember it better. I'm even thinking of the opera singer Adelina Patti, from the 19th century. She was I think the great great aunt of Patti LuPone, and Patti LuPone was talking about what a massive ego Adelina was. Just your typical typical opera diva. And she would actually have her husband, when they would tour the country, she would have her husband take a tape measure and go outside. And sometimes it's meant getting up on a ladder to the marquee and actually measuring the letters to make sure that her name was bigger than everyone else's. A little bit of trivia there. Let's see, let me scan here, see if I can do this. Oh, Cindy's asking, are the planets unaligned? Well, I don't know. I don't know, Joyce, are they aligned, unaligned? What are they right now? You probably have told already. I'm sorry. And crafting and conjuring, you're talking about your crocheting and fabric, among other things. I think it's so important this is where I'm avoiding going into the politics, but you all know what I'm talking about. All the chaos right now and craziness. And I have been telling people for many months that to keep our sanity, our own peace of mind, we need to find what our own art is. Now, and people are hung up on this idea. It has to be painting or drawing or sculpting. Your art can be anything. I mean, more obvious examples, writing, singing, but I'm talking about cooking in the kitchen, working in your garden. I have a friend who's an accountant who just loves working with numbers. That's her art. We all have our art. We have our creativity. And I just feel, well, I think what's happening right now is going to come to a head soon, but we'll talk about that on Whimsy's show. But the last few months, because I do talk to people all over the country because of making calls for Whimsy's clients and all. I mean, when this administration started, people were just so scared and panicking and depressed. And I would have these conversations over and over, but what gives you joy? What gives you peace? Your art could be your children, your grandchildren, just something along those lines. So crafting and conjuring, I'm glad you definitely have your art right there. Joyce, your astrology, that's your art, very much your art. Dr. Whimsy, when she was teaching me about homeopathic medicine, and I said to her, Whimsy, I don't know if my brain can comprehend all this. And she said, well, first of all, stop thinking of medicine as a science. Think of medicine as an art. Think of it as an art. Think about how the beautiful synergy that takes place in our bodies, like a beautiful musical symphony, or how it's like poetry or prose, and what is going on inside of us is being mirrored by what's taking place outside of us, and all the stars and the planets and the sky. Anyway, she started putting it to me in terms like that. Think of it as an art. And that really opened my mind to how many other things in life are also arts. Let's see. Let me get back to some comments here. Andy, a man who holds up a glue factory is a man who is stuck to his job. Yes. Let's see. Well, the late Dr. Ruth was a class act and had a fascinating life story. Oh, I just love Dr. Ruth. I love Dr. Ruth. She was so much fun. I remember when she first came on the scene, I guess around the 1980s. That's where I became aware of her first, when she started doing talk shows, like when Joan Rivers used to host The Tonight Show. Oh, those two were a lot of fun together. But then Dr. Ruth got her own show. Good sex with Dr. Ruth Festimer. To hear this sweet little Jewish grandmother talking about all this stuff. But, that was her calling in life. That was her calling. And she did it so beautifully. And it's like my friend Stephanie, who is a sex therapist. She says it's so important to demystify and take away the stigma and the prejudice people have about this, and just open up minds to see that it's just life. So that was her great purpose. Oh, crafting and conjuring. I do numerology charts and pendulum work. Oh, you and Joyce should definitely hook up there. Numerology is so fascinating how it works. Wow, Joyce, the full moon we just had was in Taurus. I remember you telling me that now. It was the exact degree of my natal sun. Yeah, I remember we chatted about that. Sydney Willis. I'm not hopeful about AI. Well, I don't know in what respect. I mean, in that it's going to take over, take away a lot of jobs, or you just feel it's going to eventually falter. I feel like with AI, it's inevitable. It's like we let the genie out of the bottle, and now it is just growing and growing and growing and growing. The momentum is there, but I refuse to say it's going to take my place as an artist. No way. No way. No way. No, I will kick AI's butt. I can. I will rely on my own talent, what's in my own soul first and foremost, and I'm confident enough in that. It's reminding me of a story Emma Thompson was telling on Stephen Colbert. And of course, Emma Thompson, aside from being an Oscar-winning actress, she's also an Oscar-winning screenwriter. Wonderful writer. You know, she did the screenplay for Sense and Sensibility, the great adaptation there. And she was talking about this, how she likes to write in longhand, and then she types it into her computer. And Word Check wanted to start changing what she had written, and it would even ask, do you want me to change this sentence here? And she just said, and they had to bleep her language here, but it was, F you, no. F you. You're not going to change my work. That's how I sometimes feel too. Us older people, that's how we feel. Now maybe younger people would go along with it a little more. Maybe it seems a little more normal. People my age, it's sometimes a rude intrusion on the creative process. Oh wait, Award said, Miss Joyce, that moon also was supposedly thousands of miles closer than usual. I would believe that because it was so big in the sky. Yeah, Andy, I agree with you. AI is getting a little out of hand. Yeah, where they, as you say here, you've seen videos where they have dead celebrities in wrestling matches. Oh yeah, I'm seeing stuff like that popping up, and it just gets more and more realistic. I saw some videos just the other night on social media. Fred Rogers, you know, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. They took videos of Fred Rogers and AI enhanced him to have him swearing a blue streak. I mean, saying very un-Mr. Rogers things. And yeah, I will admit it made me laugh, but I also thought this is really disrespectful to this great man's memory. It's just, there's just no way around it. It's disrespectful. But I'm seeing things done. I mean, I remember like a decade ago, I saw something that was amazingly well done, and the technology is much better now. But there was a chocolate commercial where they took footage of Audrey Hepburn from around the time of Roman Holiday and Sabrina, you know, 1953, 54, that time of Audrey Hepburn, and they managed to recreate her using the technology. And she was promoting this chocolate, and it was surprisingly believable. And if I'm not mistaken, I think her two sons granted permission for it to be done. And maybe at the time it wasn't looked upon as so egregious. It was a new technology. I know her sons loved her very much, so I know they didn't mean harm. But maybe they thought, oh, this will be kind of cute, bring our mother back for something like this. But now I'm not so sure how they would feel, how many people would feel. I think with AI, it's very, very important there be disclaimers. I mean, there are plenty of us who know the difference, but there are plenty of people who don't know the difference. And as time goes on, less and less people are going to know the difference, and they're going to accept this as fact. So I think to me, there should be a moral obligation to have some little disclaimer saying this is AI generated, this is not factual. Obviously, that's not being done, and I doubt that's going to be changed because I don't think there's any way of enforcing it anymore. I mean, who really does control artificial intelligence? Let's see here. Let me see if I can scroll down a bit. Yeah. Was Renee, so many lost arts, but hopefully new arts will come to take their places. You know, things will evolve. Was this AI is only as smart as its programmer, but it also, and I don't entirely understand how this works, but it is called artificial intelligence. Now, some could say there's also artificial stupidity, but artificial intelligence is just that, intelligence, where in strange ways it starts thinking for itself, and it starts processing, and it starts building on itself, to where this is where people say it's scary. I've read predictions that, like, as soon as, excuse me here, as the 2030s, not that far away, we may have computers that will have exceeded human intelligence and their ability to think on their own. And that's where this could start looking like, what was it, Hal in the movie 2001? You know, it could get scary, but what are we going to do? As I said, the genie is out of the bottle. Let's see, I'm going to teach my granddaughter embroidery. I think that's a great idea. You know, that's how we keep our arts living. We keep passing them down to the next generations. That's so important. So yeah, I'm glad you're doing that. Let's see, like crafting and conjuring. What would you consider to be some arts that are lost right now? You know, something that comes to mind for me, the art of letter writing. I'm just seeing if I had my pen here. Okay, let me grab this. I actually love cursive handwriting. I love the art of handwriting, so much so that I have this beautiful Mont Blanc fountain pen that I just adore. I know, and I sometimes have shown it to people who are not impressed. Well, a 29-cent Bic ballpoint pen will do the exact same thing. What do you need that thing for? And some people don't get it. But, you know, being an artist, I love beautiful design. I love elegance. This pen in my hand, it's so elegant and it's so rich. And it just feels so good, the flow of the ink on the paper. I love it. I love it. But I'm found, and I know you've all found this, this is not a revelation, but just less and less people are writing letters now. They're handwriting anything. And I'm guilty of it because, you know, I'm blessed in that I can type fairly quickly. When I say that, I meant like 70 words a minute. Now, I know, like a professional secretary, I think they can get up to like 120, 30 words a minute. But for me, that's fast enough. I can think and write at the same time. Now, I don't know what that's saying about my brain, how fast I think, but 70 words a minute seems to keep up with me. And sometimes I've had to do that out of necessity. But it was Julia Cameron in her book, The Artist's Way, where she talks about the artist pages, where every day you handwrite 3 journal pages every day, because that's part of just stimulating the flow of your creativity and your channeling. And she emphasized, do not type. No, it's something about the brain and the hand, and the fact that when we're handwriting, it slows us down. It allows us to think. It allows us to feel. So I still love journal writing, letter writing by hand. And yeah, I write thank you notes and things. And my feeling is that a personal note that shows the person you took the time to sit and write that, it shows you really appreciated what they did for you. So much more so than sending a text. Though I'm not putting that down, because I've There are plenty of people who won't even bother to thank you for a gift. I figure a text is better than nothing, but I've always appreciated handwritten notes and cards. Oh, and Joyce, I'm glad Maya is doing well. You have to pardon me. I don't know if I asked you about Maya. We talked a few days ago. And of course, my Sasha, she's over there. They're in the room with all the debris, sleeping on top of a chair right now. I told you she got her manicure yesterday. I almost got clawed and bitten and scratched, but she got her nails trimmed. I made the mistake once. I was at the vet. She was getting her, I forget what it was, her vaccinations or checkup or something. And the vet said, "Oh, would you like me to trim her claws for you?" I said, "Sure, go ahead." And then I go up to the desk to pay my bill, and I saw they charged me $30 to do that. I was like, I could have done that myself. I didn't. Anyway, live and learn. Let's see. What was this? Crafting and conjuring. My late Nana used to hand tint photographs with watercolor paint. Very popular in the 20s, but no one has done it in ages. When I know someone who used to do that, but I'm pretty sure he used oil-based paints, because I know this because I paint in watercolor. I couldn't imagine watercolor adhering very well to a photograph unless it's paper-based. But I know he used oil paints thinned out, diluted with, of course, turpentine, and he got beautiful results with that. I guess one of the reasons it's not done anymore is because now you can have an app on your phone. You can just hit a little button, and all of a sudden your picture's colorized or the tinted or whatever. But don't get me wrong, I'm very much about doing those things by hand, and I don't believe you ever get the soulfulness from an app on a phone or a computer like you would by hand. And it is beautiful. But I've also talked about how I used to do darkroom photography when I was in college. I took a year of black and white photography. Remember that? Black and white? But I'm not that ancient. Color film was very much in existence, but we did black and white because black and white is much easier to develop, especially when you're first starting out, both to develop the film and to print the photographs. And I also learned to just fall in love with the medium of black and white photography. It's gorgeous in its own right. But I've talked about how it was such a craft, such an art, where I would have my 35 millimeter camera. I'd actually take the picture, and then I'd take the film, remember camera film, take the film out of the camera in the darkroom, process the film, and then have my negatives, cut them apart, and then go to the enlarger with my photo paper. And then with the enlarger, because you're projecting the image onto the sensitive photo paper, you take your hands and manipulate it. Like certain areas you want a little darker, I want a little lighter in this area. You're actually doing that with your hands with the light. And then you get adept where you know how to time this, to not go too long, not to do too little. And then you put your picture in the first tray of chemicals, and then the next tray of chemicals, and you wash it. But when I'd have that finished picture, I felt like I'd really earned it because I had seen it through all the stages. And that's a satisfaction no one is ever going to get from their smartphone or anything like that. You're just not going to know that. But then there are plenty of people who'd say to me, well, I don't give a crap anyway. Why do I need to know that? But I think those of you who are fellow artists understand what I'm talking about. There is just such a joy in making art like that and seeing it through. And for me, there's a sense of pride in achievement. So anyway, that's my feeling. We have craft and conjuring, still so much to learn. I need to live to 110. There's still not enough time. That's how I feel. And as I get older, I'm believe me, I feel great. I'm not a fatalist or anything like that, but nonetheless, there is that awareness. Time is starting to run out in the hourglass, and all these projects I've been wanting to do, I better get myself in gear. And somebody's sending me hearts here. Thank you so much. Uh, let's see here. Okay. Darn it. I was trying to move up here, and now it's not letting me. It's stuck. Let me see if I can get down here. Okay, let me see if I can find my place again. This goes much further down than I wanted it to. Okay, where did it go? And I was trying to just go down a little bit, and the whole thing went blip. What was this here? Let's see. Oh boy, missed out on a lot of comments here. Sorry. I'm trying to find my place again. Okay. Okay. I lost a lot of place here. You please forgive me if I miss your comments altogether. It's never meant to neglect you or insult you. Gosh, I can't believe how far up I have to scroll here to find where I was. What was this here? Okay, well, I think this is approximately where I was about the hand tinting of the photographs. Crafting and conjuring. Ward, when was the last time you saw a photomat? Photos are all digital now. Yeah, it's true. And I got a story there. I didn't work in a photomat, those kiosks, but I worked in something called Fox Photo. It was a store and a mall where people would bring in their photo finishing, their their film, and then we would send it to the factory to be processed, and then we'd have the envelopes there for them to come and pick up in a day or two. And whenever we would get bored in the store and be slow, we would open up people's envelopes and look at people's pictures. Oh my God. Some of the most X-rated pictures, I mean, disgusting X-rated pictures. And then some of them were just ridiculous. Like there was I remember this man, this old pot-bellied man, standing naked in a motel room with a blow-up doll. And he proceeded to take all these pictures of himself with the blow-up doll. And we put the pictures back in the envelope, put it back in the bin, and something like 15 minutes later, the customer showed up to pick up his pictures, and he was like in a suit, looking all dignified, like a banker or something. And I had to wait on him, and the other 3 workers were under the counter, just dying laughing. And it fell to me to keep a straight face and wait on him and give him his pictures. So that's my little story along the lines of photomat. What was his word? Okay, Mr. Benny was from Waukegan, Illinois, that I knew. And towards the end of his life, he was the commencement speaker at the Jack Benny High School. He asked for questions. One girl asked. Okay, I'm sure there's more to this. And let's see if I can do this without losing the place here. Oh, yeah, Andy, I saw that when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie. Mr. Benny, why did your parents name you after our school? Oh, I'd love to see his reaction. That's really cute. Oh, yeah, Kelly, and I also knew that Clark Gable was from Ohio. Yeah. Yeah, Midwestern values there. Andy, you're asking about Scotch tape. Maybe that's referring to what I said about Dean Martin having the glass of Scotch and it was apple juice. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. What was this? Renee, crafting, conjuring. Just love learning so much to do and not enough time. Yeah. But then that's what keeps life exciting. That's what keeps us on our toes, that ever quest to do more. And yet at the same time, we know deep down it's going to be impossible to ever do everything we want to do, but it keeps us going, keeps us motivated. It's like the carrot on the stick, you know? Andy, it was alcohol till the death of Dean's son. Now that I hadn't heard, because I don't know at what time that reporter encountered Dean Martin for that interview and said that Dean was just play acting drunk on stage, but actually had apple juice in his glass. I don't know what the time frame was, but that would make sense. I know that when he lost his son, he was quite, understandably, quite devastated. Yeah, that's true, Ward. Dean Paul Martin died in a plane crash. Yeah, he's once wed to Olivia Hussey. Yeah, that's what I meant about his death. It was obviously very unexpected. It was a shock, and I've read that Dean Martin was just never, ever the same again. Let's see. Let me keep going. Oh, Kelly. Oh, you said, well, you've probably already left now, but you said, unfortunately, time for me to leave. Have a great night, everyone. Well, thank you for joining. If you hear this, Crafting and Conjuring. I'm watching Whimsy 2. Oh, I knew that because I've seen your name in the comments on Whimsy's show. But thank you very much for coming here and joining me also. Really appreciate that. Let's see. What was this, Ward? I always thought that Anne Southern's original name of was that Henrietta Lake was better. I don't know. Kind of like Anne Southern. I told the story on here how she was really mean to Barbara Eden. Barbara Eden was very much a lady and did not name Anne Southern. You know, when I saw her doing the question and answer Pasadena 3 years ago. And but she said it was her second ever acting job. And it was a situation comedy with an established actress. And she said this actress that she would not name was just so cruel to her, you know, berating her, putting her down, scaring her, just making it a very unpleasant experience. And apparently it was because Anne was jealous of Barbara. Barbara was 20 years old and beautiful. Now, she did not name her, but I got out my phone and looked it up. And I thought, oh, yeah, Anne Southern. But then I also told the next job she had was I Love Lucy. And she said Lucille Ball treated her so well, so lovingly, so kindly. And it restored her faith because Barbara was really scared by that experience. Let me carefully scroll here. Oh, yeah, and if John Wayne, if he'd used his real name as Marion Wayne. No, I think in that case, that was a good name change. I think his real name was Marion Morrison, I think. No, Marion didn't fit him. Oh, wait, of course. And that's so funny. I go and read the next comment, and Ward was even saying here, I don't think Michael Morrison would have been too bad for Duke Wayne. Oh, Joyce, you better eat something. I don't want you to get a stomachache there. Pardon me. I hope I didn't burp there. If I did, I apologize. Casting and Conjuring. Call me Gypsy. I will, Gypsy. I'll call you Gypsy. Yeah, Renee. You know, I really strive not to get into politics here, but yeah, there is some disappointment there, and I know friends who are really worried about what's going to happen with their healthcare premiums. We got to hope for the best, but we'll definitely talk about this tomorrow on Whimsy's show. Where one of the reasons I try to avoid politics on here is because last year I learned the hard way when I showed some artwork I was doing of Kamala Harris, and I mentioned my support. Well, I got some vicious, vicious hate comments over that. So much so, and Joyce, you were my administrator there, and so was Pam. And thanks to my administrators, we blocked a lot of those people so they couldn't come back, and we got their comments off. But it's hurtful and it's disappointing just the same. So I try not to go there. Figure Whimsy show is the place to do it. We're better prepared for it. Oh yeah, Ward, that is good advice to Joyce about ginger tea. When I was in the health industry, we used to recommend that a lot. Ginger tea is so safe and gentle. You can give it to a pregnant woman during her first trimester for morning sickness. That's how safe it is. It's also delicious too. Also, ginger chews, like ginger candy, is quite helpful for nausea. I'm trying to scroll slowly here so I don't lose my place. Well, Renee, I will agree with that much about how it's up to the people now because the politicians aren't changing anything. That's actually a message that Whimsy and I have had for months on the show. It is coming down to you, the individual, and it's the power of the individual. It's like a drop of water comprises all of the elements of the ocean. You put enough drops of water together, you get an ocean. Put enough water together, you get a typhoon, you get a hurricane, you get a storm. It can be very, very powerful. And I do believe it's up to us as the individuals to probably reclaim and save our government. But I really don't want to get into topics like that here if I don't have to. Let's see. What was this word? Mom, I once saw Dr. Ruth in an airport and said Dr. Ruth was smaller than life. Yeah, I knew she was about 4'7". I'd heard even 4'5". Tiny, tiny, tiny little woman, but boy, she was powerful. Someone else, Judy Garland, was only 4'10". I've read that Betty Davis and Joan Crawford were only like 5 feet tall, but powerful souls. Very powerful souls. Judy, that voice. I think that the magnitude of the voice that came out of that tiny little woman. I was, if you're familiar with the Hard Rock Cafe restaurants, I was in one once in, I think it was in Costa Mesa, and they had in a big shadow box frame one of Judy Garland's dresses. I think it was a red dress that she wore in the movie A Star is Born. And I was just shocked how tiny that dress, it looked like a little girl's dress. You really saw how small she was. In fact, now that I recall, I also saw at an auction preview a gown that Elizabeth Taylor wore in the movie A Place in the Sun. It was also an itty bitty little dress, almost like it was made for a little girl. I forgot Elizabeth Taylor was a tiny woman. And let's see, where's some other comments? And pardon me for taking a quick drink there. Let's see. Oh dear, Cheetah, you had wisdom tooth removal, oral surgeon. I've gone through that. Not fun. Oh, Ward, that's great. Mama's still in the world at age 97. She's helping to keep you sane in this kooky globe. Yeah. Some kind of discussions here. award, I might consider painting a cozy for that mug. You know, I've got so many art commissions right now. I don't have time to do something like that for myself, but it's a good idea. Andy, I think Dr. Ruth died. I think it was within the last 2 years. I know she lived to be in her 90s. Joyce, you're back. You're making tea. Let's see. Oh, your daughter, Sydney Willis. My daughter can do freehand calligraphy. She's very talented. Yeah, those are arts that I hope don't die, but unfortunately, most people now are just going to go on their computer. You know, if they need like a letter face or something. But there is a beauty to something that's been done by hand and the care that goes into that. Joyce, you were mentioning an antibiotic you had to take. You know, antibiotics sometimes can be very, very rough on you and take a lot of your energy. And I hope, Joyce, you're taking your probiotics as well as that. You know, alternate them. Like, I don't know how often you have to take your antibiotic, but if it's like every 4 hours or so, alternate in between that with your probiotic. It can make a big difference, and it can save you from a lot of grief. You know, like a lot of people end up with digestive issues, diarrhea, candida because of antibiotics, and the probiotic prevents a lot of that. Renee, remember real mail? Yeah, get less and less of that now. Usually when I go to my mailbox, I still get a few bills as opposed to the electronic ones, and more often than not, it's just a lot of junk mail. You know, stuff that, you know, I see all this wasted paper. You know, my building, we're pretty good. We have my apartment building, we have a trash can below the mailbox, and then some good person will take all that to the recycling bin. So at least we can help that junk mail to reincarnate into something hopefully more purposeful. A lot of political endorsements and things. And I just thought, this little piece of mail is not going to change my opinion. I'm sure that's true for a lot of people. And, Joyce, I agree. Astrology isn't a religion. In fact, Joyce, I might have mentioned this to you, and you might, because this is your domain, this is your expertise. I could be very wrong on this, but it always seemed to me that astrology is a bit more of a science. It's an art and a science. It's a science as far as the positioning of the planets and asteroids and moons and what have you. But I guess it's the art in knowing how to interpret that. Now, you might disagree with me on that, but that's the way it's always seemed to me. But I've never thought of it necessarily a religion. I guess it's because, in a way, everything is like a religion. You know, I used to talk to this wonderful woman who's a friend of mine. She was a Reverend Marlene Morris, a science of mind minister, not Christian side, science of mind minister. And she said that literally everything is God. Like, this couch is God. This computer is God. Everything, because God is everything. God is everything. That was her reasoning as a science of mind minister. Now, people may disagree, and I'm not trying to open up a can of worms here because I am only going to be here on a few more minutes. I don't know if Anastasia is doing a show tonight or not. Let me just check my texts real here, since you heard them all coming in. No, I don't think she is doing a show because she's with her friend in the desert right now. Unless she changes her mind. So look out for your bulletin from her, because I know she really appreciates when you come over and watch her. Let's see. Now that's an interesting comment from Ward about things disappearing. Metal tinkering. No accident that Sir James Barrie called the endangered fairy Tinkerbell, since tinkers were already scarce by the late 19th century. Well, I just learned something. I didn't know that. And 2012, Cheetah, The Artist's Way, one of my absolute favorite books. Yes. Um, it's been many years since I picked up my copy of Artist's Way, but I remember it was quite helpful. The thing that I love most were the morning pages, but I'd already been doing something like that anyway, because I've been journaling for like the last 40 years. I have all my journals, I have a stack of journals. Oh my God, I should check to see what I have written in those things. See, because I was talking about like clearing out things after my aunt died, my mother died. Someday, some poor family members are going to be cleaning up for me, and I can just see them going through. Oh, what are these books here? What? What? I'm going to have to make some decisions with those journals. I always, when I advise people to journal write, I always say, don't be afraid to write in it anything you want, because nobody has to see it. But then maybe that comes around later. I don't know. But then maybe it doesn't matter anymore either. What was this, Andy? Speaking of painting, my mom and I would love watching Bob Ross paint. Yeah, it can be very soothing to watch that. I've had people ask me if they could watch me paint. And honestly, I hate it. I hate it because it's a very private thing for me. And I don't like someone over my shoulder watching me. But I've also had to get over that because I've been advised to make videos to put on YouTube of my process. And I do have a few, like the Kamala Harris I did last year. I documented all of the stages of that. And thanks to my dear friend Pam of Pomona Remembers, who did a lot of the heavy lifting. She did a lot of the editing for me. But we took all those bits and pieces, something like 18 hours of work, and condensed it down to about 45 minutes. And you can speed watch me how I paint and draw. So it's good for educational purposes, and that's on YouTube on my channel, the channel we're on right now, Chuck's Captivating Chronicles, November of last year sometime. Hopefully people are not offended by Kamala Harris. I discovered there were. We had to kick them off of this channel because, even as Dr. Whimsy said, she warned me about this, to expect it. You can't take it too personally. But one of the things she always emphasizes on her show is kindness. She said, that's the one rule I have on the show, that you treat each other with kindness. You treat me with kindness. It's a good rule. And anyway, Sydney, I was referring to AI. No offense to anyone. I love astrology and numerology. I don't think anybody took offense in that. I think we understand. We have good people here. What was this cheat? I used my darkroom linen paper to hand tint. I guess linen is more like a paper surface as opposed to a plastic resin surface, which is often on photo paper. At least when I was working with it many years ago, the black and white photo paper I had a slight matte finish on it. There was a little bit of plastic coating. That's why I knew watercolor would never adhere to that. But linen paper, I could see that. Crafting and conjuring, I'm not okay with AI. I have, as I've said before, I have a lot of mixed feelings about it because it does affect me directly as a professional artist. And I write. I do both. So it does affect me personally. But it has been pointed out to me that at this stage of the game, AI can still be used as a tool to assist us. A good example of that, I had to design a Christmas ornament for someone, and it was Kelly Clarkson in a sled with Christmas packages in the sled. It helped me a lot to just go on AI and say, okay, give me an image of Kelly Clarkson in a sled with packages. I'm just a starting point for me to draw from, to paint from. It saved me time. So in that respect, it was helpful. It was a good tool. But I think when it starts taking over the whole art piece, that's where I have a bone to pick. I'm not happy about it. and I would never allow that. I have too much pride in my own work to do that. But crafting and conjuring, photography is a lost art. Yes and no. Yes and no, because it's kind of a two-headed monster. People have their phones or iPads and things like that, and they're taking pictures. I've actually seen some stunningly beautiful work, and there is an advantage now that most of us now literally carry a camera and a video recorder with us in our pocket wherever we go. So that allows us to photograph a lot of things you never could do before, like all these pictures and videos you now see of cyclones and tornadoes. It used to be that was a very rare thing, because who happened to just have a camera in their hands to capture a thing like that? Well, now we all do. And people who maybe were challenged by the technology of photography, because when I took it in college, it was very, very involved. You had to really know your stuff. And now you can hand a phone to a 5-year-old and they can take a beautiful photo. So in that respect, it frees people up to express this creativity and to take beautiful pictures. But I will also agree with you that photography is a lost art in like what I was talking about, the whole idea of taking the picture, developing film, taking that film you've developed and then going to the enlarger in the darkroom and taking your hands and manipulating the image onto the paper and hand developing it. That's a craft, and that's definitely being lost. And how much photography is going to be respected as time goes on, we're just going to have to see. We're going to have to see, but I don't think there's anything we can do about it. It's like, again, the genie is out of the bottle. It's happened. Oh yeah, and I've heard that line. We want to go to my dark room and see what develops. Yeah, I've heard that one. What was it? Crafting and conjuring? I don't know. Ask Chuck. What? I don't know. Ask me what. What was this, Renee? Someone needs to teach women how to use power tools. Well, I think, yeah. And I don't mean that just for women. Women and men both should know how to do things like this, how to do repairs. One thing, it saves you a lot of money. And also you can, if you know how to do your job, you know how to do it right and can possibly do it even better than a professional would. I had a friend, she used to change the oil in her car herself. I mean, to look at her, very elegant woman, very polished, poised. You wouldn't imagine her putting on overalls and crawling under her car. But she said when she was a teenager, her older brother was changing oil in his car. And he said, hey, you, come over here. Put on some old clothes and get in his car with me. I'm going to teach you how to change your own oil. And you will have this for the rest of your life. So, yeah, anyway, Renee, yeah, power tools, why not? Anything. We should do things that help us to be more independent in that respect. And darn it, there went my comments again. Let me see if I can scroll back quicker. I don't know why it does this. Okay, I gotta. Okay, I'm gonna try to do this fast. See if I can recognize a comment, what I was just talking about. Oh boy, I just went down a tiny bit and blip. Oh God, what is this about? Okay, yeah, okay, we're about photography. Let's see. Wow, crafting and conjuring. We're a community of artists, crafters, and farmers. Come join us. That sounds wonderful. That sounds wonderful. And in Alaska. Whoa. What was this? Ever see the Lidtard Bella? Was a fascinating story. No, I'm not familiar with that. Renee, I live in Pennsylvania now, but moving back. Lived there in the 70s when my dad was posted at Fort Richardson. Loved it. Best place I ever lived. What was this, Cheetah? Chuck Photomat TMF. I'm not sure what you mean, but I told you it was Fox Photo. I used to work, but it was like a Photomat, and it was like a Photomat, only it was bigger. It was a full-size store as opposed to one of those little tiny booths. I always wondered, what do people do who work in those booths? What do you do when you have to go to the bathroom or something? I don't know. Maybe that's too much information. Oh, crafting a conjuring. I can't handle the dark winters. Yeah, because that's right. You're that far up north. It must get dark really, really early. When I was in Scotland, I was there in the summertime. It didn't really get completely dark until almost midnight. This was like in June or July. But I heard the flip side of that story was that sometimes it would get dark by 3 o'clock in the afternoon during the winter time. I wouldn't deal with that so well either. Though I'm not really minding the time change right now, getting dark at 5 o'clock, because something about autumn this time of year, it makes me feel really calm. And I was talking with Whimsy about this, the doctor, and I said my own theory is because, when the sun goes down and it gets dark, our brains make more melatonin, and melatonin, of course, is relaxing. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from. I'm going to try to scroll down. I see what happens here. I'm going to do this real slowly. Ward, I always like driving by the Pennsylvania Turnpike with the, what was this, the proto rest stops from the 1930s. Oh, I don't remember seeing this. I've been on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, but I don't remember seeing that. That would be interesting. And Katem 1472, Dino, Desi, and Billy with Dino Martin's son were a fun band. And I've told the story. I once spent a weekend with Desi Arnaz Jr. and his wife, Amy. This was, oh my gosh, I think it was around 2001. It was right after 9/11 happened. And I didn't stay at their home, but I stayed nearby and had dinner and breakfast with them a few times and some nice talks. Yeah, Desi Jr. is the sole survivor of the trio. Yeah, Lucy was a class act. Scrolling here quickly because it is almost 7 p.m. I've got to sign off soon because I got a lot of work to do tonight. By the way, someone here confirmed Anastasia is definitely not doing her show tonight. I figured she wouldn't be, but I'm glad you checked because I always want to send you over to her just in case. Let's see. I'm seeing here I think a CD for the group is selling for $62 on Amazon. You got to really be a fan of them to want to pay that. Oh yeah, War, you were mentioning Brenda Lee topped out at 4'9". In fact, there was a story. I saw an interview with Brenda Lee last year on Christmas time. I'm sure you know that story. Her song "Rocking Around the Christmas Tree," after something like 60 years, finally hit #1 on the charts. And she was just so cute and sweet in the interviews and so excited because I think isn't she in her 80s now? And here she had a #1 hit. But she was telling a story about how when she, because she was a star when she was 13 years old and she was performing in Vegas. And she saw Judy Garland lounging out by the pool at the hotel. And she very politely approached Judy and introduced herself and said, "Miss Garland, do you have any advice for me?" And Judy said to Brenda, "Don't let them take your childhood away from you." And Brenda said she never forgot that. Oh, yeah. So what was this sheet of papaya enzymes help nausea? Now that is true. Well, see, papaya enzymes have bromelain, and bromelain is anti-inflammatory, and it's also particularly good for breaking down meats. I'm sure you've heard of bromelain or papaya being used as a meat tenderizer. That's why. So it is helpful, but it's one of the milder things you can do, but it can help soothe the stomach. But that and then ginger makes a good combination because ginger is excellent for nausea and soothing the stomach. Let's see, I'm just speeding through these comments here because I'm going to have to go soon. Yes, here's the comment from Andy Anderson. She says she can't do the show tonight. Thank you for checking. Uh, I would imagine Anastasia will live stream later in the week, but she's with her friend and they're working and they've got a lot to do. What was this word? Anyone else wish we could get e-chips that would turn any TV set, laptop, cell to tune into Looney Tunes whenever any political ad came on? Yeah. Of course, we can manually do that. It's pretty easy to look up Looney Tunes on YouTube or something. Oh, I can just imagine. Let's see. I'm just going to speed quickly here. Oh yeah, Ward. I know that comment from May West one day. Keep a diary, and one day it will keep you. Yeah. Well, Rebecca, what you're saying about journals, they do give a meaning to each day, because I find, we're all guilty of this. We get so overly involved in our day. I didn't get anything accomplished today. I wasted this day. And I'll read back my journal page. And I'll go, I did this. Wow, that was a productive day. And I even learned things today. So it's good to take stock like that. Yeah, well, and Sydney's mentioning turmeric. Well, turmeric, of course, is a powerful anti-inflammatory, very, very safe, and it's one of the best of the anti-inflammatories. When I was in the health industry, we used to give it to people for arthritis and joint issues. It was quite beneficial. But it can be other forms of inflammation, sinus inflammation. We had a well-known singer who used to come in our store. I won't give his name, but he had vocal cord inflammation, and I suggested turmeric to him, and it worked. It helped him quite a bit. What was this? Yeah, Andy, what you said about people driving with phones in their hands. I was on the freeway just Friday with a U-Haul, and all around me I could see people with their phones while they were driving. It's a recipe for disaster. Well, you see crafting and conjuring, saying yes, Chuck, referring to photography. That black and white. I lost my place here, but you said that 35 millimeter black and white film will never be replaced. And I agree with you on that. There's just a richness to it, a detail. There's a quality that you can't really replicate digitally. But unfortunately, a lot of people are going to likely forget that, especially younger generations who are never going to get to experience it in the first place. They're just going to get too used to digital. But I do agree with you on that. Trying to scroll slowly here. I want to go through these quickly, but I don't want to lose my place again. Let's see. Wait, the chat doesn't seem to be about what Chuck is discussing. Well, I do see it going other directions. So yeah, it's okay. Yeah, Ward, thank you. Yeah, it does take me time to catch up to the comments. Thank you for reminding that, because as I said, it's hard to look into the camera and talk to you and then read these comments at the same time. If I had a teleprompter, it'd be so much easier. That's why I have to talk for a while and then go here and then look. And sometimes I will make a comment and I'll see somebody else has already said it. But I do my best here. Let's see. Oh, Joyce, thank you. I always learn something new when I watch your show. Well, thank you. Well, that is an exciting thing for me, and I'm proud of that. Thank you very much. What was this? Crafting and conjuring. Chuck's been hanging out with Whimsy. Whimsy and I have a friendship that goes back over a decade. We used to work together in the health industry here in Los Angeles, and I have for many years worked as her assistant. She since has moved to Portland. Darn, my comments are moving here. She moves to Portland. I'm here in LA, and that's how we do our show together. Occasionally, we can hook up in person. So in that respect, yeah, we hang out with each other. But she's just a good friend, but she's also been a wonderful professional mentor to me, one of the best I've ever had in my life. As I've told Whimsy, and I tell people freely, she always strives to get me out of my comfort zones, to show me that I'm capable of much more than I ever believed I was. So that's a good person to hang out with and have as a friend. It's a very good person. What was I saying? Oh yeah, well that is true. Before cameras, that was the original art. Cavemen painting on walls or carving pictures in stone. I took art history in college. That is long considered the very first art. And then of course we had the painters and sculptors for hundreds and hundreds of years until the camera. I think I saw on the internet that the very first photograph ever taken was 1839, I think. And then there are plenty of portraits of people from the 1840s. And of course, that's when people, I think exposures had to be very long, like 15 minutes or something. That's why you had people looking so grim, because they had to stand there and hold their pose and not blur the picture. But I could look that up more. Joyce Petrus, have a good night, everyone. It's time for Maya's treat, and that's of course her cat. Love you all. Love you too, Joyce. Yeah, and as Ward was pointing out, Dandy, there were quite a few steps between cave painting and photographs. Yeah, I was just speaking very, very briefly there myself. Yeah, I know that myself just from having studied art history. But bye, Joyce. Thank you for joining us. Very much appreciated. 2012 Cheetahs saying goodbye. A lot of people are saying goodbye, so I'm going to do it soon myself. I just want to make sure I've got comments here. Crafting and conjuring. Her herbalism is rubbing off on me. Oh, it's always rubbed off on me. We see, I've been in the health industry for many, many years, long before I knew Whimsy, but she just enhanced that. And when I was working as her assistant, sometimes that meant actually we would get these big shipments of bulk herbs from Amazon. And it was my job to like break apart the herbs, put them in mason jars and label the mason jars, and then put them on the shelf and alphabeticalize them. So in that respect, her herbalism definitely has rubbed off on me. But Whimsy is very passionate about it. She's working on projects now where she is energetically, psychically talking with the herbs and listening to the messages they have and what they have to teach. And thus far, it's been fascinating what she has come up with. She talks about a lot on the show that we do. What was this? Ward 1826 is the earliest surviving photograph. I just know I did a Google search, like what's the world's oldest photograph, and it told me 1839. But yeah, it certainly could be earlier. Andy, I miss Pam. Oh, Pam's still around. I talked to her on the phone just 2 days ago, but Pam's a busy woman, a gifted artist who's always working on things. She'll be back. Let's see here. Trying to get this to move. Okay, I think I reached the end here. It's not, my comments aren't moving anymore, so I think I'm finally at the end here. It's a 7:11 p.m. I thank you very much for joining me, your loyalty, and I will do my best to be here. I'm going to say now approximately 5 p.m. Approximately. That always was my official time, but as you know, sometimes it's 5:05, 5:10, 5:15. I had one week it was 5:35, but I aim for 5 o'clock. But at least you get a notice, and you all seem to find me. And I thank you very much for your diligence, and it means a lot to me. It's never taken for granted. So stay safe during your Mercury retrograde. We've only got, well, this is the first day of it, and those damn things last 3 weeks. I think it's until November 29th or something. I'll have to look that up. So please stay safe and secure. And I'll see you here next week, next Monday, and we'll have more fun. And if you can think of some topics you'd like to talk about or questions, I'm always game for the challenge. When it talks, because when it comes to entertainment history, I've got all this stuff up in my head where I don't even know how I draw upon all the information, but it's there. So just ask me questions, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very, very much. 2012 Cheetah. Whimsy is my mentor. She's my mentor too. Mine too. I have nothing but the deepest of respect for that great lady. So anyway, I'll see you next week. Bye for now.